Welcome, everyone. My name is Lupita Porman. I am working with the Hispanic Church, and I am so glad to be joining you all today with this special occasion hosted by the Region 1 seniors, our sister Paulina Odongo, who she is among us. And this interesting and very important subject that we're going to speak today, domestic violence awareness. And we are going to start praying and asking for the Lord's guidance. And whatever is spoken today is going to be under the will of God. And we are all submitted to his grace and his mercy. Amen. Let us all pray together. Father in heaven, I praise you and I honor you because you are our God, our Father. I thank you for this beautiful day that you have given us, Lord. And I praise you because you are wonderful, Lord, and your people is gathering together, Lord, with this subject today that we're going to speak, Father. I thank you, Lord, because you have this time for all of us, Father. Please, Lord, forgive all our sins, forgive all our transgressions, Father. And we want you to speak to us through our these two ladies that are going to be speaking to today. And I pray, Lord Jesus, that deliverance comes through this information that we're going to receive, and we can understand, Father in heaven, your will upon our lives, Father. I thank you, Lord, and I declare that this time is submitted to your Holy Spirit, Lord, and do what you need to do today. In the name of Jesus, I pray and I thank you. Amen. So welcome again. I'm going to pass you today to Sister Paulina Odongo, Pastor Paulina. She's going to take over and she's going to introduce our speakers today. God bless you.
Amen.
Sister Paulina.
Okay. Praise the Lord. I thank God for this opportunity. This opportunity that I'm here today to talk for us to focus on domestic violence. Now, this domestic violence was just a thought that I had, and I shared it with the senior ministry. And we thought, I thought to myself, during the lockdown, there must have been a tremendous amount of domestic violence, upheaval in the homes, lots of situations going on. So I thought, well, why don't we just have a talk about it? But then recently, there's been an explosion of revelations regarding domestic violence in the home. And the thing about it, this domestic violence has been hidden. Yeah, many suffered in silence. And therefore, this workshop or this awareness day is even more relevant because the internet has exploded with people coming out and having the confidence to speak. Why is that? Because people are dying. Mm-hmm. Women are dying. Men are dying because of this domestic violence, which is becoming to be the norm. But we don't want it to be the norm. We need to speak out about it. We need to bring it to the forefront. And another issue that's been highlighted is that is happening within churches. And people are told, don't say anything. We don't want the church to have a bad reputation. Don't say anything. In fact, if you do say something, you may lose your position. And this is one of the things that's happening to the lady, the gospel singer. I wouldn't give, respect to her name in the sense of pronunciation, but she suffered in silence. Anastachi, she suffered in silence, and she was beaten black and blue, but she was still praising God. She was told not to, if you say anything, You may lose your position because you are the lead. You are the lead worship leader in the church. So my question is, how many people are holding it because of position and because of what the church, not some of the churches are saying? Yeah. Now, it is said that many of the churches, they obviously have the taught on divorce. So if you don't want to stick by our rules of no divorce, well, you need to stay within that situation, that marriage, that condition. You know, you need to, and the word is stay. You need to stay, and that's what this gospel singer was doing. You know, she was staying in a situation, and obviously she put her children at risk, and that's what many women are doing. And where do they end up? In a box. You see what I'm saying? If the women stay or the men stay, you will end up. Now, having said that, though, I need to say that we're not here to promote a mass exodus from marriages or from certain situation, because some situation can be fixed.
Yeah.
Enough is enough. There are some situations that cannot be fixed.
Yeah.
And as you wait, you are signing your death warrant, really appealing to women to come out, men to come out. You know, why would you want to live a really unhappy life? And this lady, her life was unhappy to the end. She was kept really in a box because she could not invite anyone to her house. She could not do so many things. But today we are here to expose these abuses and support those who are being abused, where they can get help, etc. So today, before I read a poem, we've got two speakers, and we have Angel White will be our first speaker, and she has had the lived experience, and she's willing to share those experiences with us. And she uses color, you know, as a means of healing. She's called the Color Queen, Aka, Color Queen. I'm interested in this to hear how she does that. Okay, and therefore, when she comes on, she will say more about herself. And she has, as she mentioned to me, she has about 27 years experience, you know, in this field of you know, sort of helping people who have been abused. And our second speaker will be Sister Angela Clark, a qualified psychologist and psychotherapist with many years experience in counseling and safeguarding. She's also the CEO of RAFA, International Development Agency, which is social action charity, which is a social action charity arm of the Church of God of Prophecy. Okay, so we are here today, and if there are any pastors in line, I really would like you to take note that there is a serious situation going on, and we need to listen. As a pastor, I need to listen. As a pastor, you need to listen. Listen to the brethren. Just because they're praising God and running about maybe and everything, you know, we need to have a discerning spirit, and we need to listen, because, you know, that groaning, that moaning is telling you all is not well. That body action is telling you that all is not well. And so it is, all was not well with that gospel singer. And after this was revealed, the husband has been arrested. So many people are coming out of the woodwork. There may be people online right now in that situation? Yeah. Okay. Because of the shame, you think I'm not going to say anything. Just carry on. But no, we don't want you to carry on. So I'm just going to read a poem, and then I'm going to hand over to Sister Angel. This was written by someone, and I'll tell you the name after I've read it. It says here, it's quite long, but a note to those abused. He said, say no always to abuse of any kind. Put the dark, diabolical situation in the light, and it will lose its power, especially if it becomes physical. Always choose safety first. You can pray and fast from a safe place. Know that you are worth more than rubies. You cannot appeal to an abuser, so do not stay. Organizations are there to give you help and support. Ultimately, only you can take care of yourself. Best, love yourself. Time does not change an abuser, so look after yourself, spirit, soul, and body. Never condemn yourself or let shame, guilt, disappointment, or fear of any kind prevent you from speaking out. Only God is righteous judge of all. He hates divorce, but also despises all abuse. Waste no time in doing the right thing. Stand up. I'll say that word and I'll pause. Stand up. Speak out and live in liberty. Your life depends on it. Did you hear what I just said? Your life depends on it. Mm-hmm. Yes, you will have the scars. Yes, the memory will take time to heal, but you need to live. So the word you need to be looking at, or we need to be looking at, is live. We need to live. Yes, it's hard. It is very hard, because what the brethren are going to say, what our brothers are going to say, what our sisters are going to say, what the pastor or whatever is going to say. But at the end of the day, choose life. Choose life. And he said, yes, your life depends on it. And this poem was inspired following the death of the Nigerian gospel singer by one of our pastors, Pastor Lenore Greenaway from Living Water Fellowship. She penned these words because she had a heart of compassion. So if we see our brother suffering, we need to have a heart of compassion and don't condemn them in an abusive situation. Don't say, oh, it's okay, just stay, will be well. But we have heard and we know that all is not well. So at this time, I'd like to hand over to Angel, and she want to say something further about herself. Angel White, may the Lord bless you as you present.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Angel, also known as the Colour Queen, hence you can see my bright colours. My mantra is, I get up, dress up, and show up for my day in the mighty name of Jesus. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I am a fully qualified interpreter for deaf people. I love languages. I'm hard of hearing, so I gesticulate a lot because I'm an interpreter. So over the years, I've got 3 beautiful children, a 34-year-old, a 30-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 14-year-old grandson. So the first time I actually came into contact or understood domestic abuse was the fact that my father used to hit my mum periodically, not very often, but often enough for us to understand that he used to hit her. As I grew up, I realized that I knew my father, but I didn't know my mother's husband. The same man, but two different people, because the way he treated me to the way he treated my mum was completely different. And her family knew what he was doing, but yet nobody supported her. Nobody they would say, well, and then I'd say, but mum, why is our dad like that? And she said, well, what do you want me to do? I've got 4 children. Where am I going to go? Even though my mother was a fully qualified nurse, back in the day, I'm 54, back in the day, you did put up and you did shut up because there wasn't anywhere to go at the end of the day. So consequently, what my mother actually taught me was that it was okay that if your partner steadied you, she didn't verbalize that, but we teach our children more by our actions. So if we behave in a particular way or we accept certain things, our children are more likely to accept that. So I grew to think, well, it's not that bad. And I then was married very, very early. And my first husband wanted to have his hands around my neck. And I thought, that's it. I'm not having any of that. So my mother died and then my father died. I got to 27 and I met another man. And to me, he was absolutely everything to me. I'm very young at this point. I'm 28 years old. I've got no mum. I've got no dad. At this point now, I now have other abusers in the mix, which is my ex-husband trying to take my children away from me, my brother that's fighting me for a quarter share of my house, my cousin that's also behind him rubbing his back. So I now have a circle of abusers, all misogynists. And my brother is ganging up with my ex-husband and my cousin, all against me. I have got no mum, got no dad. So one afternoon, my brother comes round and my then partner's in my house and my brother is abusing me. I mean, he's calling me all of the under the sun and all the rest of it, which then opened a floodgate for the man that I was with to think, wow, she doesn't have anybody. So that was that. Everything was ticking along because obviously, I'm young and I want this thing to work. And my mother had already met him, and my mother had said, well, you've already been married once, and you've got your children, so you don't want to keep swapping men. You need to just, if you like him, it's best that you stay with him. So that was in my mind. So I remember a friend of mine, she took my children for the weekend, and I, from very, very early on, because I don't know how to be a girlfriend, I only know how to be a wife. So very, very early on, I was sort of washing for him and cleaning and this kind of stuff, just being nice to support him and help him out. And then I said to him, bring your ironing and I'll do it. And he said, okay, well, I'm going to go out to see my son. And I said, can I come? And he said, well, no. And I said, fine, because I'm going to, go and be with friends. The man snatched up his ironing and was shouting and left. Now, I'm thinking to myself, okay, no problem. You're going home. All day he was ringing me. Then it simmered down. We went to a party. We was in this party, and then he started being verbally aggressive, not swearing, but being very sort of I don't know who you think you are, and this kind of stuff, being unkind to me. So I then said, okay, well, I'm not going to tolerate this. I'm actually going to leave. So I decided to leave the party. It was like a club, actually, to be honest. And there were some taxi drivers outside. So I've gotten into this taxi. So he's come outside, banging on the taxi door's window, literally being spread eagle on the guy's bonnet. The guy's throwing me out of his car. He's dragging me across the car park to his car, throwing me up against his bonnet, having his hand round my neck, strangling me. What did I do wrong? Dragging me into the car, shouting at me all the way home. He stops. At this point, he has never put his hand on me, apart from that time. He stops and he's shouting and he's telling me off and he's telling me off and he's telling me off. I didn't even see where this hand came from. Next thing I know, this man just shot me a box in my face. Okay. I'm crying. And even then, at that point, I'm still willing to think, well, I don't know what to think, because this smack has come out of nowhere, because I cannot make sense of why you would want to hit me, because I said to you, I will iron your shirts that I'm volunteering to do at a later stage. So we kind of like got over that to a certain degree. There was never an apology. I think it's nice for the other ladies when they say that the men buy flowers and apologize. I never got an apology. And then consequently, over the period of the 27 years, it was in and out of when he felt that I had disrespected him, or if he felt that I stepped out of line, he felt that he needed to steady me. I've had bathroom scales thrown at me. I've been thrown into a wall mirror. I've been throttled on numerous occasions. I've had a bar stool picked up to hit me. My daughter's had to run in and save me. I've had my 20-year-old have to stand in the middle of us. You name it, I've had it. And then I looked at it and I thought, you know what? My baby is now of an age whereby I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And God just delivered me. Because what God done is that he kept me safe till the storm passed by. Because some of these abusers, when you have children for them, whether you're a man or whether you're a woman, you're with an abusive person, they will poison your children against you. I had already experienced that. And my auntie, who's now passed away, said to me, try as best as you can. Yet again, that advice, try and stay in there for as long as you can. But at any point, it's by God's grace why I am alive today. Because not many people get a bathroom scale thrown at them and still living. Not many people are grabbed by the back of their neck and ran and been thrown into a big mirror and still be living. You cut a main artery, you're dead. So this thing is really, really serious. And I've never met a man yet that beats his partner that loves himself. Because the Bible tells us clearly that, you know, the husbands should love their wives the way Christ loved the church. So there has to be a situation whereby as well that these chaps have they got mother wounds? What would really make them feel that it's okay to raise their hand above their head to somebody who is washing, cooking, cleaning, ironing? And also what I found over time is that a lot of men who are abusive, they like buckets with holes. They need healing. They need to heal. But if they don't feel that there's anything wrong, if they don't feel that what they're doing is wrong, they're going to continue to do it. And maybe they saw maybe their dads do it, so they're thinking, okay, you know, well, it's appropriate to do so. So that's the physical aspect. Now, there's no end to physical abuse. Grabbing, pushing, grabbing you by your hair, any of those things, holding you down, to prevent you from moving, so that, you know, that they're forcefully telling you, you know, listen to me, you know, I want you better listen to me. And because you're trying to maybe leave the room, even if you're trying to leave the room and walk them out and they bar you in the room, that's also very physical, because they're not letting you be free to leave the room, to leave the space, so you can find yourself into a safe space area. And oftentimes, again, men towards women, they're a little bit stronger than women, so they're able to restrain the ladies. That's not to say that, you know, women aren't also physically kind of like abusive as well, throwing things, and you know, because we've heard cases in the media where women have sort of like stabbed or hit people and this kind of stuff. So it's always very, very difficult. And why they use physical violence is as a means of a warning. If you step out of line, I will slap you. If you say anything that I don't like, I will slap you, or I will throttle you, or whatever. At the end of the day, people have said to me in the past that you know, they've been strangled, you know, they've more or less lost consciousness. My father beat my mum once. He broke her arm. That was really embarrassing. She was a nurse, and she then had to explain how she broke her arm, and there was disparaging remarks and comments. It was really rather embarrassing for my mum, and yet the shame that she felt, and yet she still stayed in it. And then we've got the kind of like the emotional abuse, whereby they're telling us, do you know what, nobody else is going to want you. You've had 4 kids by me. Who do you think is going to want you? Look at the state of you. Most ladies, when you meet your partner, you are pencil thin because you've had no children. But over time, your body changes, maybe menopause. So sometimes they will emotionally abuse you. I had a lady once say to me that her partner was emotionally abusing her. He was off with other ladies, and he would buy her a big box of cream cakes and say to her, go on, off you go, sit and eat those, because that's all you're worth. So if people often keep telling you the same thing consistently, you start believing it. So she would sit there and eat those cakes, and then afterwards feel awful because she'd eaten those cakes. But yet again, it was another way of him actually kind of controlling her. There's also spiritual abuse, whereby at the end of the day, you might want to attend your church, and before it's time to go to your church meeting, they cause an argument with you or a fight with you. I've had the distributor cap taken off, like I want to go to my evening class or something like that, and whatever it is he done, took it off the car. So as I get in my car, I can't use my car, always being late for my classes, having to give up my class. I was nagged incessantly about a course that I was doing, till in the end I had to give it up. Now, all of that kind of behavior is very, very controlling behavior, because irrespective of the fact that we're in a marriage or a relationship with somebody, we all have the right to be free, to be able to express ourselves the way that we want in a safe, friendly environment. But I think controlling has got to be one of the worst aspects, because then you get to a point where you're not even able to judge your own, to trust your own judgment about something very, very simple. Because sometimes when you're in an abusive relationship, the perpetrator will make you feel as though you're silly, you can't make decisions, you're not making the right choices. If you choose something in blue, they'll turn around and say it would look better in red. And then all of a sudden, you're not sure where you're at. And obviously abusers, are narcissists to a certain degree, but they need someone who's codependent. So it's a very, very vicious cycle. Now, people, you don't want to be codependent, but you feed off of each other, because you're in this, it's like a trauma bond. You're bonded to the person that's ill-treating you, because what happens is all the other people, they eventually bring you onto an island all by yourself. So you stop going out, maybe stop communicating with your friends because you may have bruises, or you're so low that you think to yourself, it's a pretense at the end of the day. As for the church, at the end of the day, we know what the church can be to a certain degree. The church just wants it to be tailor-made. It wants it just to be very nice, that everybody comes in, praises God, give your tithe and leave. They just want to scratch the surface. And even if you do sometimes try to say, look, I'm not really, really happy, sometimes the hierarchy in the church, they're really, really busy, and they're dealing with a lot of people, and they don't always want to deal with uncomfortable subject matter, because yet again, in whichever way we cut the cake, there's a lot of sort of like, so-and-so was married for 20 years or 30 years. I was in a relationship for 27 years. God just plucked me out of it, because as far as I'm concerned, it would be like me cutting my wrist and pouring out the blood. Enough is enough. My son is grown, but not everybody is at that stage. Some people are still trying to think, well, if I pray for him a little bit more, if if I fast a little bit more, if I do more of what he likes to eat or what she likes to eat, they will just treat me better. There is nothing that you can do to get somebody to treat you better. They have to want to treat you better. But ultimately, we have to love ourselves, and we're not really taught to love ourselves, because when we hear somebody that talks about loving themselves and caring about themselves, they're often deemed as being a little bit arrogant, a little bit too much up themselves. But that's not true, because if you love yourself, you have boundaries. You're able to put boundaries in place, and you're able to say, right, this is how far you will go, and you'll go no further. Because if we teach our boys and we teach our girls that if a boy raises his hand above his head, he's got to go, because it doesn't just stop there. And this is what I learned at the end of that. I've got a laundry list, a shopping list of stuff that was done to me at the end. And I look back and I think, wow, it's God's grace why I'm alive today, because and it's almost as though you're in a bubble. Like, you cannot actually believe that happened to you and that you still stayed in it. And it's a mystery if you come out alive. It's a mystery if you come out alive. And I think, and then it's the gaslighting aspect of it, where they're making you feel as though you shouldn't be upset about particular behavior. So they may have hurt your feelings, and you're saying, look, you're doing something that really, really, hurts my feelings. And then they will then try to portray that, no, I didn't do that. And then you're getting upset, and then you may get into an exchange of words. And then if it's somebody that's quite physical, they then use that as an opportunity to then slap you, pull you about, or who do you think you're talking to, or jump up, or behave in a very intimidatory manner. Nobody should be in a position whereby they should be in fear of the person that they love. And if you have to change your behavior or word your diction in order to prevent a blow up, then there's a very, very good chance that you're being abused by the people in your life. You could be abused, you could be physically, verbally, emotionally abused by your daughter, your son, your partner, your father, your minister. There is no one size fits all. It's just an abuse of power at the end of the day. So some people will abuse the position that they are in. And I think if we have a greater understanding that no means no, and that, no, I won't allow you to speak to me like that, and there's going to be no hitting, there's going to be no calling out of my name, there'll be no disrespect. And once, the ladies heal, or the men and the women, they heal from that traumatic experience. And I think one of the reasons why people stay so long is they have that nostalgia, because you think very much about the good times, and he or she wasn't so bad really, and and you think about that lovely holiday that you had, and it was really romantic and it was really fabulous. But then you need to remember about the cheekbone he broke, your nose he broke. So it's great that you can remember that you went on a lovely cruise, but every 5 minutes he's beating you. So it's really, really difficult, because as Sister Paulina said, we're not here to turn around and say to everybody, like, pack up your bags and start running through the door. It's not that. It is about assessing our own personal situations and looking and having that conversation with our loved ones to say, well, at the end of the day, I don't want any more violence in our relationship. I want us to be able to have a conversation. I want us to be able to talk. Yes, we've come X amount of years down the line. So this is great. This is a crossroads now. So it's either we can continue down the road in this relationship without any physical violence. If not, I might have to go my way. And a lot of ladies, depending on where we are in our lives, cannot leave the situation because of finances. Because oftentimes, if they're in a situation where maybe their husbands are the main breadwinner and their children are small, finances could be a difficult thing. They don't want to break up the home. Sometimes the fathers use poisons the children. Sometimes the mother poisons the children. So it's very, 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 very difficult. But I think all things being equal, you can't parent your child from the grave. So it's very much about us really looking at the bigger picture. And as Sister Paulina said, when we had lockdown, there were far more cases that were emerging because people were going to were speaking to their doctors. They were suffering from anxiety and depression. There's a very strong correlation between domestic abuse and mental health, because people end up getting anxiety, depression, all of these situations, because you don't know where you are, because they come in and went out in the morning, they seemed okay, and they've had a bad day at the office or something like that, and then you're the easy target, they'll pick on you. But what is really, really strange about abusive people is that they will not go and slap up their boss. So they're not going to go and shot the boss a hot box, and say, look, I feel really upset today, like, who moved my cup? So come and let me just drag you around the place and swing you around. They're not trying to do that. So why is it they're waiting till they come home now and you're there preparing a nice meal or, whatever at the end of the day, and you say something to them and they're pushing up their face on you and you're thinking, what's the matter with you? Because my mouth is hot already. I know my mouth is hot. So a lot of the time I was told, if you to keep your mouth shut, I would have to lick you up in your mouth. But, I'm going to keep talking because my mouth is hot anyway. This is my mouth. So it's a situation whereby in an adult conversation, you should be able to have that little bit of banter. You should be able to have something where someone's not just going to want to come and pounce on you. So if you're in a relationship and you can't have that little bit of joviality there and a bit of a laugh, and they come in and say, this is how I'm feeling, then we do have a problem, because I'm not your beating stick. And no woman or no man, nobody should feel to themselves that, that they are the punch bag of the person that they, that they live with. And another aspect of emotional abuse is that you get in the bed. And then, you've got the little cord of the bed, and then at the edge of the bed, and you could run a big bus through the bed. Don't bother coming to the bed. That is emotional abuse. That little cord that's on the bed that goes around the mattress, they're sleeping on that. Why you say just sleep on the floor? Because you're coming upstairs and you're upsetting the situation. If we've had an argument, and we've got a situation, how about we discuss it and we soothe it out? Silent treatment is also abuse, when they're refusing to talk to you, they're not talking to you, you're trying to sort of say, well, what have I done wrong? Oftentimes you haven't really done anything wrong, but they're in a bad mood, so therefore you're the target. That's also abuse. So control is to me, one of the most awful aspects of it outside of physical abuse, because being an adult, you don't need to be controlled by another adult. You shouldn't really need to have to ask a partner if you can go to A or B. You can have a discussion, but you see, control freaks, the thing that they fear most is to lose control of their subject. So when they feel that they're losing control of abuse, that is when they become more potentially dangerous. Most women are killed when they're trying to leave their batterer or once they've left, because at this point the perpetrator feels he's got nothing to lose. So that's when you're most vulnerable, when you're trying to leave the relationship. And sometimes I had a friend so about 29 years ago, and she was in a domestic abusive relationship, and the father came to pick the daughter up for the weekend, and he put the daughter in the car. Then he went back to my friend's house and said, oh, I've forgotten, I don't know, her cardigan or something. And my friend said, well, I packed everything. And he said, well, no, I've forgotten whatever. And he, in that short space of time of leaving his daughter in the car, he murdered my friend. So at 25 years old, all of my year group, we were going to the first funeral of our time because he had murdered her, and she had tried to leave him but went back. Statistically, it takes women 7 times. Women leave their abuser 7 times before they actually leave the abuser, because they leave and they go back, they leave and they go back, because it isn't easy. It's not so easy after they've been trauma bonded. It's not so easy. They've built a life together. They have children. They're worrying about what people are going to say. But really, when they get educated to realize that they're not alone, because a lot of people feel that they're alone. Well, what am I going to say to people? I've had them for such a long time. They're embarrassed, and marriage is not an accomplishment in the sense that it's a gold medal. Marriage is a union between a man and a woman. It's not something to be flaunted as a trophy, because being in a bad marriage is no fun at the end of the day. The tongue is in the head with the teeth it's going to meet. You cannot have roses. If you want roses, you have to negotiate thorns. So if the roses in the garden are not going to be red all the time. We know that. But in the real grand scheme of things, you need to be happy. And if people are going to be physically, emotionally, spiritually, abusing you and taking you for granted and breaking you down systematically, because this is what it is, you're going to be broken down systematically, because how long do you realistically think anybody is going to, I know people who've had nervous breakdowns because of the way that they've been treated. How long realistically is any one person going to be able to cope and manage day in, day out? And it isn't necessarily that you're being ill-treated on a daily basis, but you're dealing with rupture and repair. So you have this big rupture and then you repair. And then what I found for myself, that I was very much on this big cycle. So we'd have this big rupture, then I would be trying to repair. And then by the time I tried to repair, there was another rupture. So I was constantly on this treadmill of never, ever really being able to be settled, never really knowing whether it was going to be calm. The holidays were the worst, the Christmases and those times there, whereby you knew that you was in that confined space whereby you just didn't know whether something was going to kick off. So so it can be very, very difficult for people. Any questions so far? Is there any questions, Angela, so far?
Nothing in the chat as questions at the moment, Angel, so keep going if you...
Yeah, so basically, I think when we're dealing with keeping ourselves safe, if we're in these situations, we need to confide in somebody. If we've got a really good friend or confidant, confide in somebody. Make a little exit plan, have a little Vex money put aside, a little something, a little Vex money put aside, and a little case or something, stuck somewhere quite far, so that if you feel that you do need to exit, you can do so. But it's really, really important to share what is going on with you with at least one person. There is nothing to be ashamed of, because people are going through this all of the time. And if we don't break the silence, more and more women are going to be killed all the time. Currently it's about 3 women a week that have been murdered. But when you look at it around the world, the misogyny around the world is probably 1 woman every 2 or 3 minutes. So it is really statistically really, really serious. And I think that in some cultures, women are not taught to be, men are not always taught to respect us. And so therefore, we now have to change the way that we raise our boys as well. At the end of the day, we are women, they are men, and we stay in lane. And there's I've got 2 boys, by an example, and both of them can cook, because I don't want to be handing them over to somebody else's daughter, and if she's not well, they can't even boil an egg. So it's very much about training them as well. And then I looked at kind of like how I was raised, and I was raised to do, I'm Jamaican, I was raised to do all of the Jamaican food and all the rest of it, and I did all that, and I still got my ass bust. So I don't know. And then there's a woman down the road that like gets fish and chips for her husband, and she claims that she ain't got beaten. So I don't know. Is it just the person? I said, get my ass bust. I used to run up my mouth, I used to get my ass bust. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm doing oxtail, stewed peas and rice, curry gold. I'm doing all these things. I'm setting bath with candle and all of this thing, talc in the bed and making a man feel good about himself. And when him ready, him take up him bag, him take up him phone, him take up him fags, him gone through the door. Say any little thing to him, in vex up. So I'm thinking to myself, really? And I think it's having to be dealing with, I have to deal with my own emotions, but then when you have to be dealing with somebody else who hasn't got charge over their own emotions, and Shami said, I don't have time for this. I wish I had time to talk about time. And then I'm thinking, I've got my children and I'm trying to hold down whatever I'm holding down and keeping my house nice and all the rest of it. And all you want from your partner or the people around you is to appreciate you. But what I will say to you is, as a female, we have to be very, very careful that a floodgate is not opened up once one person abuses. Because once one person has been allowed to get away with it, you see, if you notice, a lot of women who have had an abusive partner, sometimes their sons grow up to be abusive. There's two ways it can go. Sometimes the son grows up to be abusive. My son, who's 20, he is so lovely. He is amazing because he has chosen. And he used to say to me, I used to say to him, boy, I sucked the salt through a wooden spoon, you know, to bring you come. I sucked the salt through a wooden spoon to bring you come. Meaning that I made those personal sacrifices for him, and he repaid me by being an A-star student, not getting in trouble with the police. And he says to me, Mummy, and I don't want him to feel indebted to me, but what he has done, he has paid me back by staying out of trouble, being an A-star student. But that was a gamble that I took, because what we need to fundamentally understand and appreciate and respect is that, as my friend said, my partner said, my lovely business partner, Claire said, there's the silent witness, which is the children. Because when you think that when you're in the bedroom having this awful argument with this partner, you know, you're in your relationship, the children used to can hear, because when my mum and dad used to be, you know, my mum used to be screaming out, murder, murder. And it was like, she'd be screaming and my brothers would be running down the stairs and then there's all this commotion. Then they got to an age whereby they could restrain him. It's the children. And I think at some point they are psychologically, because I remember when my mum and dad used to have their set twos and I would go to school the next day, I would be shaken. I'd be emotionally shaken, but not able to tell anybody. Not able to say, well, do you know what, my mum, my dad, we never actually saw my dad hit my mum, but we heard it. So, but my children, my last two children have seen me being hit, and they take a very dim view to that. They don't appreciate that. My children, they don't appreciate that at the end of the day. So I think that, yet again, as I said previously, I've never met a man that has confided in me and has said to me that they have beat their partner, that they feel good about themselves. And I then say, well, how about you work on yourselves? And oftentimes they accuse their partner of having affairs or being loose or being flat, all of these kind of things. And I'm thinking to myself, listen to what you're actually saying. This is the lady that's got your children. Why are you so easily angered by the person that you're supposed to love? So you've got to look at yourself, look at the way that you're viewing this particular lady. She's your queen. And at the end of the day, you know, if you cannot view her as a queen, then you need to leave her be. Stop harassing her and beating her and ill-treating her, because what happens is eventually you become a former shadow of yourself, because you're not able to express yourself, you're not able to be who you need to be, because you're constantly thinking, oh, is he upset? Am I laughing too loud? You know, did I embrace that person a bit too long? Did I talk too long? And all of a sudden you're overthinking, and you cannot live your life the way that God intended you to live your life. You're unique. There's not another individual like you. So we are here for a very, very short time. 70 years and 10 if we are lucky. So I believe now that nobody should really spend all of their life waiting for someone else to change. I did 27 years, it's a long time, half my life, from 28 to 54. It's a long, long time waiting for someone to fix up, to step up and do the right thing by me. You ain't doing the right thing by me, I'm gonna do the right thing by myself. And doing the right thing by myself is to save myself. And you've heard this before, when you go on the airplane and they say if the mask comes down, you put your mask on. In life now, there's two people. If there's two people, I have to save myself, because if I don't save myself, I can't be a mother, I can't be a grandmother, but most importantly, I can't look after myself. I have to be my favorite person. And once you become your favorite person, once you crown yourself and you be the queen for yourself, nobody can crown you, because whether it's your husband or whether it's your wife, because when they're ready, they're going to drag that crown off your head for you and they're going to ill treat you. So you have to put those boundaries in place for yourself and say, if we're going to move forward as a couple or we're going to part, but whichever way, we're going to resolve it now. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to say, right, okay, yeah, all right, I'm gonna maybe, because women may be more with their mouth, men may be, you know, not all men, because I don't want to be sort of like stereotyping or anything like that, because there are a lot of ladies that don't, you know, hear or say a lot. I learned after a while to say very little, which then took away my freedom of speech, because then I would just say, oh, look, I can't be bothered. And then I maintained that once I stopped talking, that's it. I was what I would classify PMO, physically in, mentally out. And I've had to do that with a lot of my abusers in my life, my cousin, my brother, this kind of stuff. At the time when they were acting in their narcissistic way, I didn't know that it was abuse, but just the way they spoke to me, the way they handled me, all of this kind of thing, it is all abuse. And so I now choose they are in my life because of who they are, but they are not a part of my life. I have made that choice. I have made that decision. I've made that distinction that, you know, I love them for who they are in their own cognizance, but I do not want them up in my life, stressing me out, aggravating my mental health at the end of the day, because through the ill treatment that I received, I developed bipolar. So I'm not trying to be oscillating in and out of episodes. So, and this is, I have a really good friend and she used to say to me, you know, Angel, be very, very careful because your body is going to get sick. And I sort of like, oh yeah, but you know, they're going to change, you know, everything's going to be all right with my brother now. And, you know, this, that, and the other. And she was perfectly, perfectly right. I didn't pay with my life, but I paid with my mental health a very, very high price, a very, very high price. So this is no joke. I'm one of the lucky ones, because a lot of people, they end up with cancer. I'm totally convinced that my mum's cancer was caused by the stress that my father gave her. My father died when she was 45. By the time she was 52, she died. So she only had 7 years of any kind of quality of life, of which she traveled and went around the world and this kind of stuff. So I'm one of the lucky ones that, you know, I am financially independent. I do live in a nice house. I do live in a nice area. And, you know, I take my tablet in the morning. But there are a lot of people that they have been sectioned and this kind of stuff. We all have mental health, is whether we're enjoying good mental health. And that's another thing. When some of the people, men or women, develop mental illness due to the abuse, their partners weaponize it. And I've been a member of mine for many, many years, and it was really sad because I met a man there, and he had a breakdown. I don't know, I think his business went down. And do you know, the wife and the children just fell short of physically abusing him. They were verbally abusing him, insulting him, calling him stupid. And, you know, when he was there, you know, he'd be crying, he'd be really, really upset. So, you know, and they wasn't even trying to support him with his mental health. You know, you're told things like, oh, you need to sort out what's wrong with him. But no, you are the reason. You are the problem, because you wouldn't turn around and say, oh, why don't you sort it out if somebody had their cancer or their diabetes or something else? So why is it that when people abuse you and you develop a mental illness as a byproduct, they then turn around and say, well, you need to sort it out. You need to find out, you know, what the problem is. The problem is you. The problem is because you can't behave yourself. That's what the problem is. If you could just behave yourself and just see when I'm not feeling so good, then we might be good to go. Now, obviously, the devil does kick me sometimes, and I do jump up a little bit like Rumpelstiltskin. So maybe that's why I got a couple hot licks. But that's still no excuse. The fact of the matter is that in a respectful, loving, kind relationship, when you're getting a hot plate, when you come in from the evening from work, you're supposed to have a conversation with me. And what happened is I got into female slave conditioning, because I was thinking, well, the more I cook, I did all this big food, the oxtail, the stewed peas of rice, the gunga pea soup, the red pea soup, and the Guinness punch and the pineapple punch and blah, 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 this, that, and the other. I thought the man was going to treat me better. I never got no better treatment for that. You had periods of nice times, lots of periods of nice times. You do.
Yeah.
And this is men or men get involved.
Sorry to interrupt you. We have got a number of questions.
Let's answer them.
But we're not going to answer them now. What we're going to do, if that's okay with you, because I'm conscious that you've been talking for almost an hour. We haven't even given you a break. So 15
minutes comfort break.
Yeah, so Pastor Paulina, do you want to take over and let everybody know what's happening?
Yes, we will have let's make it 10 minutes break, because people are just coming on. Just a 10-minute break to internalize, you know, what's been said, because a lot has been said. Really interesting, realistic points have been made. And we may have touched a lot of people. We may have brought back a lot of memories, etc. So we want to give you a little time, 10 minutes. We will put on a song, then we will come back and answer some questions in the chat, and then we will hand over to Sister Angela. So Pastor Errol, we will ask you to put on the music while they have a little break. Greetings to all those who came on a bit late. Greetings to you.
So much, Angel. We'll come back to you.
Praise God. What a wonderful session. Oh, praise God. We thank you, Sister Angel. And the questions will be coming to you soon. But as the songwriter said, there is a sweet anointing in the sanctuary. And after all people have gone through, all those in online, you may have suffered abuse. And I think, to be honest, we all have suffered abuse one time or the other. It doesn't matter what is your position. It doesn't matter. It could be the Archbishop of Canterbury or whatever. Something has happened. You have been touched in some way. Something has touched, your psyche. Something has affected you. in relation to abuse.
Mhm.
So one girl said in a session I went to, she said, my dad, he said, if I had a gun, I will shoot you. And to him, to him, it might be just a saying, but it really affected her because she thought, I suppose if he really had a gun, he will shoot me, So little things can be abuse. Verbal abuse is as strong, I think, as the physical, And why is it they use the word stupid? That's always part of the, you are stupid, and it starts everything off. So I'm going to hand over in a minute, but there's the lady we were talking about, the Nigerian singer. He was not only beating her, but he was teaching the children to beat her.
Oh.
And the ripple effect was going to happen, but the cycle, I hope, has been broken, where these children can be taken care of, that they don't think it's the norm, because they've explained what's been happening. The doors are now open. Praise the Lord. Praise God. So now I'll hand over to Sister Angela to address the question with Angel. Let her know what the questions are.
Okay, so the first question that has come from Winston, this may not just be a question for Angel. I think it may be a question for the Bible scholars and us on the platform. He says it's part of. Winston says it's part of our wedding vows, for better, for worse, biblical. And does this part of the vows give license to one person to treat another abusively and forcing them to remain in the relationship?
No, it doesn't, because at the end of the day, even though we take the vow for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, yet again, I go back to what the Bible tells us, that Christ loved men are ordered to love their wives like Christ loved the church, and Christ loves us. So obviously, it takes a bigger man to love his wife, and you can get the respect that you command from your wife by being loving and by being kind. And oftentimes, I've always said to people, don't worry about the other person's behavior, work on your behavior. So if I'm kind to you, then there should be that element of reciprocity. But because you've made vows to each other, it doesn't give anybody the autonomy to abuse you, because then that just allows people to hide under that auspice. Well, I'm married to him, I'm married to her, so we've got our vows now, so you know what, we can just ill-treat each other. No, then if that's the case, I believe in marriage, I believe in good, strong marriages and relationships. You're supposed to feel safe. You're not supposed to feel to yourself, well, you're sleeping with the enemy, as it were. So
I also think that, I suppose first and foremost, those words are specifically are not biblical. I don't think. I think
I don't think so.
I don't think that they, that they are biblical. I think they are principles, and I think that that they have been shaped from biblical, biblical principles. But that's
what the church did.
We have pastors on the line and Bible scholars. So can I have a response from the pastors to that question, if possible?
Can I come in? Should I come in?
Of course.
Thanks. And thanks, Sister Angel, for the presentation. I've listened very carefully. There are some points you've made which I think are so powerful. But just based up, and I would love to comment on that at the end, if possible, Pastor Paulina. In regards to this scripture, if I understand it correctly, when we take a vow for better, for worse, it doesn't mean that throughout the marriage it's always going to be better. And do I leave my wife because she's sick and disabled? I can't have any sex with her anymore. do I leave her because she's beating me up or something like that? I'm just using it as
Okay.
examples. So when we say for
Okay.
better or for worse,
Mm.
we are taking a vow, which, in my view, scripturally, which says there is going to be better and there will be worse. Now, I'm not saying that abuse, I agree with abuse. Of course I don't. And I don't agree that a man should hit a woman. Thank God I've never done that to my wife, and I never will. But we have to look at the scripture when we say for better. In actual fact, the actual word for better, for worse is not necessarily in the scriptures. You know,
Not.
it's
Man-made.
yeah.
It's been added
However,
in by man to control
yeah,
the church in some aspect.
yeah. However, there are some of us, and depending on what you believe and your view, because obviously the Church of God of Prophecy teaches that we can be divorced and be remarried, but there are those who believe that once you're married for life. So what's the point of taking a vow if we don't really mean it? So when we say, for example, for better, for worse, we know there's going to be worse and we know there's going to be better. So what's the point taking the vow if we don't mean it? And that's what a lot of the pastors are also saying. So if we don't mean those vows, then don't make those vows, because the scripture says only fools make vows and differ to pay. So if we stand before God and we stand before the people and make these vows, then we have to ask ourselves, do we really mean it? Or is it just until? I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Thanks for that. The next question that I'd like to approach from Maxine says, you said that in some cultures, and this is probably directly to you, Angel, you said that in some cultures, some men may not respect women as much. Do you think that the abuse of women can come from can be more common in certain cultures due to culture itself?
Yeah, because I've got lots of a mixture of friends, and like by an example, it was always within, say by an example, Greek men have been known to beat their wives, Indian men have been known to beat their wives. I think beating can go on in any kind of culture, but I think also as well, I had an incident in the supermarket, just going off point quickly. And it was with regards to my son. The security guard was disrespectful to my son. I went to complain, and the Asian man behind the counter, I felt that he was being a misogynoir, because I felt to myself that had I not have been a black woman, he would have been looking at me properly and addressing me properly. So I've escalated it to the higher level. And I do truly believe that oftentimes it's a cultural thing where they just feel to themselves all around the world, certain parts of the world, that they feel that men are second-class citizens, and there's been so much abuse towards black women. Look at women, but obviously I'm in my culture being black, and look at in certain parts of I'm not quite sure where they mutilate the female part and that kind of, it's all abuse. It's all abuse, and I think it can be a cultural thing whereby the fathers show their sons that this is how you steady. Even my neighbor across the road, the husband and the son beats her. They're Turkish. So for some people in their culture, basically, if you don't behave yourself, we're the men. So if I can't beat you, then I'll let my son beat you. In my opinion, at the end of the day, I'm not trying to die at the hands of anybody. So wherever you raise your hand, I've got my Dutch pot, I'm going to just chop it off at the elbow. It's as simple as that. But no, you put your hand here. So this is where the hand's going to stay, the hand's going, because abuse is abuse. Because I could stand up in front of my pastor and we do our vows, but then I would have to have a really serious conversation. Do you like to raise your hand above your head? Because wherever you're raising your hand, it's going to stop there, because understand me, so we're going to do these vows, we're going to say for better for worse. For better for worse doesn't mean that you're going to bust my ass for me when it suits you. It doesn't mean that. Okay. Better for worse means when you're sick, when I bath you, you bath me. Better for worse means when I'm unemployed and you're employed. That's to me what better for worse is.
Together, thank you. The next question that we're going to go on to, and it's a good one from Dawn, it says, Simi and come live with me, two different things. And that is obviously a proverb. Dawn is asking, what advice would you have for those women coming from a church background who have chosen not to live with their husbands before marriage. What are the red flags that they should be looking out for at the courtship stage of a relationship? Particularly bearing in mind that some people are very good during the probationary stage of a relationship. I'll probably answer that one, Dawn, because I think that the issue is that you're right. From coming from a church background, we don't talk about it enough. We don't discuss these issues as such. Personally, from experience, and I'm talking from experience, when I was young, 19, and I was actually looking to get married, of course, it's prohibited to live with your partner before you get married. And you're right, during the courtship stage, it's all sweetness and light. It seems magical. It's great. Until you actually live with that person, and you don't know what to expect. And especially, in those days when we married young, and it was encouraged. Obviously it was encouraged by the church, and that marriage is a good thing, and you do that. And you go in with your eyes, you think your eyes are wide open until you come across an issue. And it's not until you're actually in the situation sometimes that actually those red flags that you talk about, you realize that they were there, but it's almost as if you're blinded by love sometimes. You just, you are do you get what I mean? You're in such a good feeling. There are red flags there, but you don't actually see them. And I'll give you a personal experience, because that's why I'm on this program, because there's no point in me being in here and not being willing to share of myself. I got married at 20. I think I've just turned 20 when I got married, and had been courting for about a year and a half, nearly 2 years. And I remember the pressure on me at that time, and I will say the pressure I felt to get married because we'd been courting for so long. So I went into the relationship, got married, and was 6 weeks in, I think. 6 weeks, let me tell you. And by this time, we'd done all the preparations. We'd bought a house, which I didn't move into until I was actually married. So he'd been in the house 3 months before we got married. And then I moved in. As soon as I got married, I moved from my family home into the marriage. It must have been 6 weeks, I think, after I got married that my first experience of domestic violence occurred, and it came out of nowhere. And I'll tell you the scenario of what happened. My parents lived in the States, and I lived here. So I used to call my mum regularly, all the time. Me and my mum used to speak all the time. And I came home from work one day and tried to call my mum on the phone, and I couldn't make the call. And I couldn't understand why I couldn't make the telephone call. So I phoned up BT and I said, can you tell me what's wrong with the line? Because you can ring a number and get through to BT, but you couldn't actually make a call. And and when I phoned, BT told me that, the line has been restricted by your husband. And I thought, what? So it was incoming calls only, so I could receive a call, but I couldn't make a call, and I didn't know. And I remember, so the evening when he came home from work, and I was asking, why would you do that? And his response to me was that he'd lived in the house for 3 months on his own, and the telephone bill was below a certain amount. And since I'd moved in, the telephone bill, I think, was £60 for the quarter. Just goes to show how many years we're talking about the 80s, yeah. And it started an argument, and with that, he got physical, and that was 6 weeks after I got married. 6 weeks. So I didn't see any red flags, if I'm being honest. However, if I really thought about it, there was things that kind of occurred, even the way that the expectations on me, the pressure on me, and things like that. If I had really thought about it, the red flags were there, but I chose to ignore them unconsciously, maybe, but I was already in the situation. So if you ask what advice, I think maybe because it's experience now that has taught me, especially with my children, you know, I talk to them about, you know, I don't think I had enough maybe instruction about marriage, but my situation was a bit different, let me say, because I was a single parent when I got married. And I think there was already that feeling in me that I was, and also I was made to feel that I should be grateful that someone wanted to marry me with a child. So I kind of think I went into it in a kind of blindsided way, really. But, you know, yes, there are red flags, Dawn, just in response to you, but sometimes we don't see them. Sometimes we don't recognize them as red flags. And maybe it's because we don't, I mean, now I think there is more marital counseling or premarital counseling than there was even in those days. People talk about it more now than they do. People share more. I think in those days, as Angel said, sometimes we are silent, we are silenced, and we don't talk enough. I hope that's answered your question. If it hasn't, then just let me know. Is that okay? Pauline says, can we mute? Thank you. Oh, and Dawn, you were responding, I think, to Pauline, and you say, and yet we have church leaders telling abused women to stay with their husbands regardless and reminding them of their wedding vows. Let me go to Lupita, Pastor Lupita.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lupita. Yes, I just wanted to give a little bit more of my thoughts regarding the wedding vows, because as you all rightly said, in the beginning, you don't see that, you know, you promise, and maybe it happens as well on men, but mainly the women, you know, you are so excited about your marriage, you don't see any wrong thing. And then after you are married, then the partner starts behaving in a different way. No, not before the marriage, no in the time when you are at the altar, no. So we cannot say just, you know, you promise, because maybe the other person promised, but or you promised, but the other person didn't promise in that way. So I'm sure that many of us will be agreeing that, you know, the behavior starts after you get married. So in my opinion, in my advice, I wouldn't tell the person that is the victim, stay with your husband, stay with your wife until I see, you know, I can come closer to the person if I can, because again, I'm sure that Angela is going to speak more about this safeguarding, but I wouldn't advise, you know, because you make a promise, you have to stay with him. I wouldn't. We had a case quickly in one in our churches. The wife was complaining about the relationship, and good thing that, you know, she was talking about it to us. And then we went to our senior pastor, and the senior pastor said, you know what, it's getting more violent. You just need to come out from that relationship. And she did. And thanks God, you know, she is happy and they move on. But we need to try to avoid, you know, accusing or giving our opinions and criticizing others, because it's not the right thing to do. We need just to be careful in what we say. And the second thing, again, the safeguarding, someone asked about the you know, when we see the red flags. One of the things that the partner does is to isolate you, to make you feel dependent on him or on her, and they control your finances and your family. As Angela, you said, you know, he just removed the contact from the telephone. So there are other flags, but I just wanted to give my little opinion, and I'm sure that Angela will say about the safeguarding. God bless you.
Thanks, Lupita. Carol also says that wedding vows also say to love and to cherish. An abusive partner is breaking that vow, and that's very true. And it's pretty much what Dawn was saying as well. It's very, very true. Shirley, you said that you're sorry you're late. That doesn't matter, but we're glad you're here. You said that you think that it's important to raise our male children, teaching them how to treat females and vice versa. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Angel has 2 boys. I have 2 boys. I have made it a point to teach my men now, because they are men now, how to
men.
treat women and to be respectful. And I do think, and this is the thing, there is a lot of things that do start from home. By the time we enter into relationships and then into marriage, whether it be male or female, if those foundations have not been laid appropriately, then that's what you're going to get. You know, you're going to get the potential abuse, you're going to get, and there are things that contribute to that, which I will go into a bit later. I don't think that there are any more questions, unless I've missed. I don't think there are any more questions, unless there's anyone online who have any questions that they want to talk about now. Shirley, you've raised your hand. Hi, Shirley.
Hi, so I'm so late. Yeah, yeah. For myself, obviously it's always women that's having to handle this trauma, unfortunately. And somehow with these pastors who are around, need to somehow gather these men, and they need to be taught. I mean, sons see the abuse that happens to their mothers, and they usually take a different defensive mechanism against it because of what they've witnessed, and they love their mum so much. But I do think that there should be forums where men are taught how to treat women, because a lot of this is based on how they're raised, how they were growing up. A lot of it is cultural. I learned a lot where it talked about, you know, like if you spoil the child, what, spare the rod and spoil the child, or something like that. But it's been given in a negative way. So children have, I've spoken to lots of men that's been abused physically by their parents.
Yeah.
And they cannot retaliate or hit back at their parents. So when they get in a relationship, they hit back at a woman.
Yeah.
For me, we as women need to address how our children are abused sometimes in the home, whether it's beating, and I'm talking as recent as yesterday, speaking to a gentleman who said that he wasn't disciplined, he was abused, beaten badly. Yeah, and I find it's cultural, and when I address it, I'm looked down upon. Oh, this is wrong with me because I get licks. You know, the way they look at it. But what I'm saying, the result is you're an abusive partner or husband or person because you think you didn't have a negative effect on you, but it did, because that's why you act how you act. You know, we need to do away with that kind of violence. I'm not straying, but I'm just saying to just Chris Rock and the Will, that was heightened emotions that came out there. And even Chris Rock's background story, he didn't respond because he hit a boy and nearly killed him before by hitting back. So the underlying issues, but the main thing I'm saying here is now the male child, the woman, like you lift up your hand to me, I'm dialing 999, you're getting arrested and locked up, yeah, and you're not going to lift up your hand again, you know. So it's how we as women respond the first time. And I heard that it takes 32 hits before somebody actually goes and leaves or does something. But if we knew that your first response is put your hand on me and I'm dialing 999, if we can drum that into women's head, men don't like to be arrested and they don't want to be locked up. So there's something has to be done to make it a deterrent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Shirley. Thank you for that. Carol?
Hi, Angela. Hi, Angel. Just one thing that you mentioned, Angel, about financial independence. I think that is a key point as well, that some women feel that they can't leave because they don't have any financial independence, and therefore how are they going to manage? And I think that is something that we need to help women, to educate women to become more financially aware. I have spoken to a few women who have been in a relationship that's broken down. They don't have anywhere to live, and they've got their children, and they don't know what to do because the mortgage, for example, is not in their name, or the house, or just me, or even where they're put to live by the council is not very nice. So it's a case again of helping women to become more financially empowered so that they don't feel that they have to stay in a relationship because they can't afford to leave.
That's right. Absolutely. I totally agree. Because These are one of the stumbling blocks, because a lot of women have to stay in those abusive relationships. As you said, some of them are domestic engineers, meaning that they're raising the children. So some wasn't able to progress in their career because they had their children, so they stayed at home. Hence, they wasn't able to have kind of like savings. So when the abuse gets to its zenith and they really do need to leave, they're already on an island, they're already isolated. So they, you know, and as you rightly said, some of these shelters and other places, I mean, where are you going to put kind of like 3 bedrooms worth of stuff in like maybe a small kind of like bedsit? So that's a really good idea, us kind of like educating the girls, the women, to become more financially independent. I remember before I was going to qualify, my first job I did was becoming a dispensing optician, and I remember saying to my mum, oh, I'm going to get married in July, so I'm just not going to do the exam. And she turned around and she said to me, man, we'll make you walk 1 hand in front and 1 hand behind, you better go and sit your exam. You go and sit to your exam. And I'll never forget it, because when I got divorced, it paid very, very well, and it enabled me to keep a roof over my head and to feed me and my 2 children. So I was, you know, I'll never forget that, because I thought, oh, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have a husband, and you know, he's going to provide for me and this kind of stuff. And then it didn't work out, and luckily I was able to have something of my own. And even my daughter, I've got 1 daughter, and she's got like a property, and she's got 3 businesses, and she told her partner, mother and partner's mother and partner, that the day that he raises his hand to her is the day the mother will have to go to the florist. So I think everybody knows on his side of the family that basically that whatever she's seen me tolerate, she's not prepared. She's not prepared. She's not prepared. She's not prepared for that. And that's a good thing at the end of the day. So it's about us encouraging our girls. But what happens when you get into those situations, it's breaking the cycle before your self-esteem, self-worth, self-love gets completely emptied. Because that's what happens when you're in a domestically abusive relationship. The abuser is like an emotional vampire. You're being drained of your self-worth, your dignity, your self-respect. You know, many women have said to me that they've been battered black and blue and still rolling up in the middle of the bed with the man that's beating them. So, you know, it's a soul tie in the sense that, you know, why would any woman really realistically, after he's beaten you so badly, you still want to keep him? And that's where the soul tie comes into it. That's where you've been broken down. This is where you have no self-worth, you have no self-love. So it's about building the ladies up for them to know that every woman is a queen, you know, from the ladies who are doing their crack in the gutter, as it were, to a CEO of a big company. It's just that they don't know it yet, you know? So it's about raising their awareness of who they are.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Angel. Yes, this is such a deep subject, you know, because, I mean, I was a nurse for 25 years and health and social care lecturer. And I've seen some horrific things come into accident and emergency. Axe in the head, all various things going on. Can I say, if we look at the elderly people, you know, it's not only marriages now, the elderly people, they are being abused. It's like the abuse still goes on, you know?
Yes.
The vulnerable woman in the bed, you know, somebody come to visit them and they're abusing them. So it's like it's non-ending. But I do feel as we begin to talk about it, things will come to light, and I'm sure there will be improvement, because as the poem said, you know, you need to speak up and you need to speak out, and that's what's happening. Thank you so much. Angela, are we going to address that last question?
There are a few people with questions, so if we take them in order, and then probably what I'll do is, if it's okay with you, I will probably interject my piece with the questions as they come, because I think I think it's probably because we want people to I don't want us to just talk at people. I want them to be able to
That's right.
express themselves. So if we take Beverly first, if that's okay.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hi, Beverly.
Can you all hear me? It's a fantastic opportunity, this session. It's really, really good. And I applaud all of you who've spoken from the heart. I work in safeguarding, safeguarding children. I'm not going to make it short. The last, I think, Pauline, Minister, you mentioned about older people. And I mean, I've got my grandchildren with me. That's how I'm in and out. But just to remind us that, like you said, domestic abuse doesn't stop once people get older, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. And don't forget, it's the grandchildren who come into that household where we have the grandparents. So again, they still can be victims, but from a different generation. So just want to bring that to the table. And also, I remember when I did, I was in a short course, and I think part of the secondment, and one domestic violence, one of the two of the calls that came in, the first one I ever got was from a woman, Nigerian woman. I think she was, and she said, my husband, he beat me black and blue, and he was actually a GP. And that really brought home to me, it doesn't matter where people are on the social strata, it can be from anywhere. So, they might be in a big house, a big car, but they still can be victims. And the other thing, when I was also out in the community, what was opened my eyes was the level of women who were subject to abuse, and their husbands were all police officers. They were, but whether they have a highly stressed job or not, that doesn't give them the right to be putting their hand on women. So that really opened my eyes to the fact that it's not just anybody who's not working. It could be people who, lawyers, judges, solicitors. It could be anybody. What we partner with, our husbands, whatever. And women, because sometimes, like you said, it takes 33, 35 times to open our mouth. You've got that stigma. What would they say? He's a husband, well respected. This doesn't go on in our, at this, my social class, but it does. So that's what a few words I wanted to say. But well done.
Thank you, Beverly.
And a lot of you, Angela, colours.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marcia, it's good to have you on the line. I was thinking about you actually leading up to this, because I was going through one of my major researches in the Walk in the Way of Love initiative from the Black churches, the Domestic Forum, and I know that you were on the steering group, so it's really good to have you online. So can I have your question? Marcia? You're on mute if you're trying to speak.
All right, can you hear me?
And now?
Yeah, sorry about that. I was trying to unmute. Just really want to congratulate you on doing this event to raise awareness of domestic violence, because as we know, it's rife. Yeah. I'm really here in my role as a lead member of the Black Churches Domestic Abuse Forum, because we know that it's been happening in churches for years, and churches have not always addressed the issue. And, one of the things is because of, our views about the marital vows, that, it's marriage is until our partner dies. And I'm really wanting to make a contribution. Thank you, Angela, for sharing your story, loving your turban and your orange nails. Very, very nice. But I just really wanted to say that obviously churches are the key institutions within our community at present. And one of the things that the Black Church Domestic Abuse Forum is really keen on doing is actually equipping our church leaders and members of leadership teams on how to properly support victims of domestic abuse. And I just really wanted to flag that up, because I think that what's really good is that awareness of the issue is being raised. It's so important, because we are all, a lot of us have been part of families where domestic abuse has taken place, or we have been in marriages or relationships where domestic abuse has taken place. Churches often are a place of refuge for prayer and maybe support from the people in the church, but we don't always get the support that we need, because sometimes
church leaders don't really know how to properly support women and men who are experiencing domestic abuse. So I just really want to flag up the work of what the Black Church Domestic Abuse Forum does. And one of the things we do is provide training. So I would encourage ladies, I think that there's a groundswell at the moment for predominantly women saying enough is enough, women from Black communities. The unfortunate death of that Nigerian gospel singer has shone a spotlight again on the issue, because it's been around a long time. And I would say to just encourage women, use your voice, speak to your pastors and your leadership team, encourage them to get training. If you don't want to get it from the BCDAF, get it from somebody else. But it's important that our church leaders are aware of all the issues that are involved when it comes to supporting women and children that are involved in domestic abuse situations. And I would also encourage women that lead women's ministry, provide safe environments where women can at least talk about domestic abuse. The BCDAF was actually the inspiration for it came when I put on an event and women were given an opportunity to actually talk. And to my surprise, I have to say it was a major surprise to me, one of the ladies, a mature lady at that, got up to say that she was a victim of abuse within her marriage. I believe her marriage is now ended. So I'm just saying, provide that safe space. Angela said earlier that we need to break the silence. And I think once the silence is broken, then the change that we need to see will happen. And those are my few words.
Marcia, you probably missed the beginning of what I said, because I said that even in doing my, some of my research for this event today, that I looked into the work of the BCDA and noticed that you were on the steering group and contributed heavily to this. And a lot of what I'm probably going to say this afternoon will come from there, because it is, it's really, really important. So
I missed it. Sorry, I came on late.
And that's not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. But it's really good to have you on. And as I say, you're right that as the churches, as institutions, and irrespective of denominations, need to be better educated. And I think that the work that has been done by the Black Churches Domestic Abuse Forum will help to pave the way. So certainly from my perspective, what I will be doing is raising awareness about that, not just on this forum or on this platform, but after this, to make sure that people are aware of what's available and how we can make best use of it. So thank you very much. I'm just going to check if there are any other questions. Right, Shirley, I will put the information in the chat regarding the organization, and I'll probably put it at the end just so that you have it. And I agree, Maxine, that more understanding, more support and understanding is needed in the church. And how can we get the youth, boys and girls, before they get into dating? Yearly awareness events, school environment are a good starting point, exposure and awareness. Yeah, all of those things are good. I totally agree. Oh, thank you very much. You've got that there, the BCDA. Thank you. So the information is there in the chat. So I'm gonna have a conversation. I'm not going to talk at you, but we're gonna have a bit of a conversation. And Angel, thank you so much, because
You're welcome.
It's not easy. It's not easy to share of our lived experience, and sometimes we have to get uncomfortable before we are able to get comfortable. And certainly putting on an event like this, especially under the auspices of a seniors event for one, and also talking about domestic violence, it's not easy because people don't necessarily correlate the two. What is church doing talking about domestic violence? But as you've heard from Marcia and obviously yourself, that people come from all different places, and the community is a community. And what we have to recognize is that when people go into the church, they are the community. When they come out of those four walls on a Sunday or off that Zoom platform on a Sunday, they are part of the community. And I know from experience how easy it can be to switch from one to the other quite quickly. I've shared before that even in the household that I grew up in, I'm not saying that it was violent, but what I'm saying is that there was, just before the church service on a Sunday, before we were going to church, there used to be a big argument or hullabaloo, and you can't understand why that is. But it is definitely the plan of the enemy, and we need to see it for what it actually is. What qualifies me to be able to talk about domestic violence? Yes, as I've already shared, I have been a victim of domestic violence, and not just that one episode that I talked about, but as a young person, and I'll share it openly because I've learned not to be ashamed. Let me tell you, I was raped at a young age, and unfortunately was silenced as a result, So couldn't talk about my experiences, couldn't share, couldn't even tell anybody about the fact of what had happened to me. So that in itself had its own consequences. And I saw, I think it was Pauline that put on the chat about mental health and the issues. Mental health, yes, mental health, your mental health is affected when you have a traumatic episode or issue happen to you. And let me tell you that domestic abuse it doesn't have to be repeated. It can be a one-off event. It can be a one-off incident, and that one-off incident can affect you for the rest of your life. So so I know that there is a perception sometimes that it's not counted as domestic abuse unless you're just beaten and beaten and beaten. That's not the case at all, because that one incident can go with you. It can affect you in such a way. It also can silence you, desensitize you, so that when you actually do get into a relationship, you see it as the norm almost, because you're so used to being abused. And it's not a good thing, not a good thing at all. That's why education is important. That's why us talking about it is important. That's why talking about it on our platforms, especially in our churches, because as Marcia has said, people do go to church. They seek it as a refuge. It is a refuge. People do go into churches because they see it as a safe place. Now, I can say from experience that I can't remember who it was. I don't know if it was Winston or what on the line, who talked about the church encouraging you to stay in relationships. I can say from experience that even myself, that when I was in my marriage, you remember I said to you that my first experience of domestic violence in my marriage started 6 weeks in. My marriage actually lasted almost 8 years. So from that one time, and it's funny, I say this not as a joke, but I remember my boss at that time came to my wedding and he took a picture of me and my then husband. But on the billboard behind us was this big caption that said, "The less said, the better." And it's really funny because I often think about that, because really, if there was ever a red flag after the event, it was that. And even if I remember even going through the process of actually getting married, even on the wedding day, I know that I had those kind of second thoughts. So sometimes we do get the red flags, Dawn, we do get them, but we just ignore them. And we hope for the best. And when we're in it, yes, there is, we have the scriptures that then say divorce or remarriage evil. So you kind of think, well, actually, I'm too young to be on my own for the rest of my life. So you know what? It's better than nothing. Well, actually, I learned that actually it's not. It's not. It's better to get out. It's better to get out with your integrity intact, with your value intact, with your spiritual well-being intact as well. Because when you're in that situation, your spiritual well-being, it takes a battering. Strength, the strength that you feel that you have when you're in that situation, it kind of ebbs away at that. It kind of diminishes. And as much as you want to pray, as much as you want to, you know, to serve the Lord, it really does kind of ebb away at you. And I've had the discussions with pastors who have said, give him another chance, give him another chance. And I did that. I'm being honest. I did it. I let him come back, and I let him come back until I didn't, because, you know, the scriptures are there for a purpose, and we need to look into the scriptures and actually really interpret them for what they are really saying. And, you know, if sometimes you have to choose, not sometimes, for me, God has to come first. And if I can't serve God in the way that I need to, and be able to give him 100% because someone is stopping me from doing that, then then I have to push that aside, and I have to, and that may not be, and I'm saying it as if it's easy. I'm telling you, it isn't easy. It's not easy to walk out of a relationship, whether it be a 10-year relationship or a 25-year relationship. It's not easy. And it's not just about relationships, because as Pastor Paulina has said, domestic abuse or domestic violence comes in different forms, different forms. It's children and parents, children and grandparents. It could be, you know, it could be even at work. It could be, you know, it could be, and because it doesn't have to be physical. We think about it as someone physically hitting you. We've heard about verbal. I know we're talking about domestic violence, but sometimes the words that someone says can hurt you to the core. It can touch a nerve. It can almost traumatize you, depending on what they said, because it can tap into something that's in your inner being. So someone doesn't physically have to hit you to abuse you. You know, it doesn't have to be a physical hit. You know, and so, you know, I remember speaking to someone, and as in my field, you know, I'm a counselor, I'm a psychotherapist, and I practice even now. And, you know, I counsel people who have been through that. And you know, you hear people saying that, you know, I thought it would get better, or I thought they would get better. I thought it would, you know, and I'm going to pray through. And you know, and I'm talking about people who have been in marriages for years and years and years. And people, as I said, I still believe that our foreparents, the generation behind us, they had a resilience that was like no other. How they coped with some things, even now I'm really, really surprised. We've heard about the impact of what we experience when we are young, when we are children even. Some of us do grow up in homes where there has been domestic abuse or violence. Even as children, sometimes we're treated less than we should be, because of the effects of what our parents are actually going through. You know, especially if there is a situation where there are not two parents in a home, and there is a pressure on one, maybe the way that you're treated, you know, whether you're a man or a woman, the way that you're treated, it's going to have an impact on how you grow up. It's going to have an impact on how you behave in your mature years as you grow up. And if, you know, people, you know, they talk about what, you know, when you hear about abuse, they say that yes, sometimes people who are abused can grow up to be abusers. But it's not always the case, because some people who are abused make a conscious effort not to behave that way, to actually treat people how they want to be treated, to educate and inform. But you have to be strong. You have to be strong. And that's why it's really good that we are talking about it on these platforms, and that we can share, and that people can share their experiences, because it's not easy. I know that in my mother's generation, it wouldn't be so. And I can tell you, unfortunately, my mum's no longer here, but I watched my mum turn from someone who was being abused into actually someone that could abuse. And I saw that firsthand. I saw, you know, I didn't see her being abused because I think someone said that they heard their parents, but they didn't see it. It was the same for me. My parents never ever let us see that there was a abuse going on in the relationship. But there was definitely domestic violence, and we heard it. And we heard it through, you know, they always closed the door and tried to make it private, but we heard it. And, you know, I watched my mom when her marriage broke up. She became a different being. She became that kind of person that Angel you described, where there was no way that anybody was going to put their hand on her. I remember watching an incident where my brother had to stop my mom actually taking a bottle to someone, and literally had to hold her back. And that was, in my view, my mum had a pent-up anger because she had been abused when she was younger. She had a pent-up anger that, I think it only kind of reduced when she got saved, seriously, because had she not got saved, I am convinced she would have killed somebody, especially if they attempted to hurt one of us as children. So it affects people in very, very different ways. And as a church community, we have to address it. We can't ignore it because it is happening in churches. It is. And when I say in churches, let me not say in churches. I'm not talking about church buildings. Let me be clear. I'm not talking about church buildings. What I'm saying is that we have people who come into our environment who are victims of abuse. And it could be in marriages. It could be older people who are being taken advantage of for fear. I mean, I know in my role as safeguarding lead, and even in my secular role in my job, I see it firsthand where older people are being taken advantage of, and whether it be financially, that they come and, they know that every time they get a visit from a relative, whether it be a grandchild or a child, that they have to give them money, or they come and they're expecting something and they keep giving it, sometimes even when they don't have it, but they do it because they don't want to not see that person. Their fear is that if I don't give, then I won't see them. There are all sorts of reasons why that happens, and it's not good. It's not, it's not a good thing, but it's real. It's the reality. It's the reality. We can't get away from the fact that there are women and men, let me say, because it is both ways. And I know that it may be lesser in volume, but it's still the same thing, that, both men and women can be coming in our midst, having been beaten, having been hit, having been treated in a certain way, and they come into our midst week after week. But, and dare I say it, that some people who are doing these things, we have heard, are in positions of power. They are in leadership roles, and they will come up and they will give a sermon, and then they come down and go home and they want to abuse their wives or abuse their husbands. This is the reality of what we are facing. And this is why, let me say, this is why our churches are hemorrhaging. People are leaving our churches. And I'm not just talking about one church. I'm talking about across the denominations. That's why you have this hypocritical stigma that is attached to Christians, because of the way that people behave. So we can't get it twisted. We have to do something. We have to have discussions like this, as uncomfortable as it may be. And it will feel uncomfortable. Do you think I feel comfortable sitting here sharing of myself and that I really want to do it? But I do it because if it actually makes a difference to even one person, if it makes one person behave differently, or one person think differently, or one person go and find information and advice and support, then we on this platform, we would have done something. Now, Marcia talked about, when she talked about the Black Church Domestic Abuse Forum, it was in recognition. It was brought about in recognition of the fact that, yes, there are cases. This new case that we've heard about, I will try to pronounce her name, because just so that you know who I'm talking about. And it's the N is silent. It's Wachuku, and then she was the gospel singer. And you've heard about us talking about the gospel singer. Now, this hasn't played out yet, because I think it's only been a matter of days that her husband's been arrested. And I don't think that we know much more than the fact that, yes, she has died at the hands of her husband. He was arrested. The family says that, there was an insinuation that she was dying of cancer and whatever, but the family have come up and said no, she was being domestically abused. So we don't know. I don't think we know enough about it yet. I think you'll hear more. It will play out more. But this is only one of many countless examples of abuse. I'm just going to check on the chat what Maxine has said. Maxine says, how can you help an abuser if they don't recognize or accept that they are abusive? Otherwise, they'll continue to do it. Maxine, I totally agree. Sometimes it is learnt behavior. That's the reality. It's learnt behavior. You know, it's learnt because sometimes, you know, young people, whether it be male, female, yes, the beatings that they used to get, it's what they're used to. That's what they know. And then in their adult life, they take it on and they adopt it and continue with it. You're right that people need, you know, that people, how do we help people to accept and adopt, you know, and accept that that behavior is not right? I know that in the sessions that I've had with people who have been the perpetrator, for want of a better word, and I don't like that word, but it is what it is. It is hard to get them to accept that their behavior is wrong, and it takes a long time. It's almost as if it's not until they are going to lose something that is precious to them, or something happens that makes them realize that if I don't change, you know, this is going to be really detrimental to my life, before they accept it. Sometimes you get people who will seek the guidance from the church or the pastor or a leader. But the issue there is that sometimes as leaders and as pastors, we don't actually know what information and support and advice to give. We don't know where, and we of ourselves may know that we actually don't have the knowledge, we don't have the training, we don't have, but we don't know where to refer people on to. So all of those things are important, but I think us actually starting to talk about it on these platforms, on the pulpits, talking about it so people actually realize that, yeah, those days of trying to throw stones through words on the pulpit through preaching are long gone. We have to name it as it is. It's almost as if you know, well, I'll say something and and I hope that it touches the person who's doing it. Actually, everybody needs to hear, you know, from the young to the old. Let us be preventative. Let us provide the information and education. You know, if an older person is actually feeling it as if they're a victim, let us provide the information for them so that they know what they can do. They know where they can go. They know that there is help that they can receive. And sometimes we're not good enough at it. You know, sometimes we may give half of the information, but we don't give the full information. You know, we need to give full information. So if it is something that I'm going through, I don't necessarily have to feel shame or embarrassment by coming out and telling everyone, but I've got the information that I can go independently to someone and talk to them, or I can find someone that I trust that I can talk to and I can get help. So changing, it's hard to change. You know, they say you can only be responsible for your own behavior. You can't be responsible for the behavior of another. But what you can do is inform and educate. That's what you can do. And that's why these platforms are so important. Now, the Black churches got together, and it was a number of churches that got together, and a number of establishments that also funded the Black Churches Domestic Abuse Forum. And it helped them to create a document, which I found really informative, because not only did it actually explain what domestic abuse is and what it was defined as, and I know that normally it talks about, you know, you think of it as domestic abuse, and you think about it in the relation in a marital relationship, but you know that isn't always the case. Let me tell you what the actual definition is, as defined by the UK Domestic Abuse Act of 2021. Just goes to show how recent it is. It defines domestic abuse as an abusive behavior between two people who are age 16 or over. Remember, there's no cap. So it's from 16 and it could be 16 to 100. Yeah. And it's defined in that age bracket, and who are personally connected to each other. And that's another thing. It's the personal connection that makes it domestic, because you know the person who's doing it to you. It's not a stranger. It's not someone who you don't know. It's actually someone that you do know. And that can be, yes, it can be physical or sexual. And yes, you can experience, let me say, you can experience sexual abuse within a marriage, physical abuse within a marriage. So just because you're married, it doesn't mean, because I know that there is a perception that some people feel that actually you can't be sexually abused if you're married to them. You know, yes, you can. You certainly can. It can be violent or threatening behavior. So it's necessarily talking about hitting. If someone threatens you or they're violent towards you, if they're controlling or coercive, you know, forcing you to do things that you don't want to do. You know, an older person forcing someone to give them their money or whatever. That's what is domestic abuse. The violence bit, yes, the violence bit is when it's physical, but the domestic element of it is when it, you know, someone could be coercive, a coercive behavior. Angel talked about dependence, you know, someone making you financially dependent on them. And that they term that as economic abuse, and that comes under domestic abuse. And then there's psychological and emotional abuse, and there are a whole load of other abuses. So when we talk about domestic violence, it is an abuse type, but it's not. But it's linked with lots of others. So you know, it's linked with lots of other abuse types. So it could be that yes, someone is domestically is in receipt of a violent attack, but that is also known as physical abuse. So they're interchangeable. The act in itself, it recognizes that abusive behavior may be directed at someone through other people. So it could be that you're in the home, as I certainly have experienced that I'm in the home and you witness abuse being done to your child. So I remember when I was young, for example, in my home, in my family home, and my dad came home from work one day and my two brothers were arguing, and one of my youngest brother slipped and fell and hit his head, and it caused him to bleed. And my dad came in and saw that, and he thought that my brother had done it, and because of that he beat him so severely. He really laid into him till it actually made me cry. And this, I mean, we're talking about how many years ago, but I still remember it. I still remember it. I remember it as abuse, and you know, and they talk about, you know, something that's vicarious. It means that, you know, in seeing that, it was almost as if I felt as if it had happened to me. I felt as if that violent attack was mine. But it wasn't physically to me, but it might as well have been, because what I saw, I knew, and even at that young age, I knew it wasn't right. And that's what, and even I tell you, that's why even in our years now, we will see things and we know they're not right. We will overhear things, we know they were not right. We will witness things and we know they're not right. What is it that makes us not speak up about it? What is it that doesn't make us? I know there's this culture of I don't want to get involved. And I know also that in the situations that Angel described earlier, I know that sometimes you have a situation whereby, especially in a marital relationship, people don't want to get involved because you're here. I don't want to say nothing because little after this, when they make up and they're happy, I'm the one that's being looked at as the bad person for saying something. So people don't want to get involved, whether they are in church or outside church. But the thing is, we have a duty. We do have a duty. You know, we have a duty to inform and educate. We have a duty to raise awareness about these things. You know, how we do it, however, it has to be done in love. And I think sometimes we don't handle things appropriately. And in those situations, we can make things worse than they actually are. So it talks about, I mean, the act itself, the Domestic Abuse Act that I talked about, it recognizes, as I said, that it can be through another person, such as the child, gives children, but what it also does, it gives children a status. It almost, you know, if they're related to an adult victim or perpetrator, and that if they witness it or suffer it, it gives them, this act gives them some kind of status, which they probably don't at this moment in time realize that they have. I'm going to just pick up this question as I go along. Beverly, you're saying it's important to always have and maintain your own friends. Some couples, because of controlling behavior, find fault in your friends, and then one spends less time with friends and develops his now mutual only friends. That's very, very true. That's so true. You know, it's sometimes you don't recognize, and this is maybe one of the red flags that Dawn was asking about, or referring to, or asking about. You can get into a relationship, and then you find that all of a sudden the person wants to you know, keep you away from your friends, or sometimes keep you away from your family, you know, cause
Camera not so careful.
Sorry, can you put yourself on mute for me, please? Yeah, they want to keep you away, and that's why, Beverly, you are right. It is important to maintain your own circle of friends. It is important, because, you know, when you have your difficulties, then you have someone to go to. If you don't have that support mechanism, then it's difficult, and you will find that you will stay in a situation far longer than you need to, because you will feel that you have no way out, or you have no one to talk to. And that's why it's important that in our churches that we have people to talk to, that there is somewhere that we can go confidentially, that we can actually talk to someone. So thanks, Beverly, for that. Appreciate that. That is a good point for you to raise. But what does abuse actually look like? What does it actually look like? In Angel's experience, we heard about how she was assaulted, how she was threatened, humiliated, even intimidated. And that's what happens. You know, you heard her talk about how she was physically pushed into a glass, you know, punished sometimes. And sometimes that makes you frightened. When you're frightened, you don't want to do anything. You don't know what to do for fear, because when fear takes a hold of you, and I know that there are scriptures that say fear not and whatever, but when you're in that situation, sometimes you don't look at the scriptures. You can't. This is what I'm saying. It's taking you away from, you know, that word that actually should be able to give you strength. You don't feel empowered, you know, and it is a difficult place to be in. And that's why it's important that we talk about these things. That's why it's important that we put it on, you know, actually not even just on these platforms, because if you look at the subject matter, and there is only 36 people online here, 36 people, and that includes the speakers. The subject is so important, but yet still we can't get people to actually come and actually you know, sit down and listen. And yes, Shirley, you're right. It may help to obtain a non-molestation order, but some people don't even know what that is. Some people don't even know what that is and how to go about it. And that's why we need to educate. I'm going to read a case study from the work of the Black Churches Domestic Abuse Forum. And this is from, and when I read this, it was just so poignant. And I think it's good to just listen to it. It says, I met my ex-husband at a church conference. It was actually at the suggestion of others that we got together. People would say to us, you two would make a really good pair. I was a little bit hesitant at first because he's not from England, but he was really good looking. So we started talking and began a transatlantic relationship. 2 months later, I went out to see him in America. Everything went well to begin with. To be fair, we didn't have much information on him, so I didn't have much knowledge. I did hear a few negative things about him, but I didn't pay attention to most of it because I felt that maybe some of the girls talking might have been jealous. We were engaged, everything was fine. Obviously, we had arguments and had to work on things because we were coming from different backgrounds and different cultures too, even though we were both Black. Black America culture is so completely different to my upbringing as a Black British woman with parents from Jamaica. Things began to change when we got married. He seemed to become more insecure. He became quite verbally abusive. He would tell me that I was nothing without him and that he had made me everything that I am. He even said that it was a good thing I was pretty because of my dark skin. We had some very odd conversations. I remember being pregnant and him questioning whether the baby was his. I was disappointed because I really wanted to have a child and was happy being pregnant. The pregnancy was when things got worse between us. He became more aloof and distant, and the verbal abuse escalated. Then when I had a miscarriage, he started being physically abusive. He would fly off the handle at the smallest thing. He slammed me into a door. He used to strangle me. I remember once I bought him a plate of food that I'd cooked. He threw it across the floor and the plate smashed. I was on the phone to someone and they heard the noise and I tried to make something up. I said, "It's fine, don't worry." I didn't know what to do. I thought that maybe if I tried to use sex, he would respond. At the time, nothing was happening in that department. And from the moment I got pregnant, nothing ever happened again in that arena. So I tried to make things better using sex, but it didn't work. He would tell me that I was disgusting to him. He threw me across the room and then he got a knife from the kitchen, put it under his pillow and said if I touched him, he would use it. This was really horrible. He said I shouldn't wear trousers. I wasn't wearing trousers at the time, but I had a suitcase full of my old ones and he took it and cut them all up and left them for me to see when I came home from work. He would come to my workplace and just cause a scene. I ended up losing that job. It was really hard to live. I wasn't telling anyone in church about this, but my friends saw bruises on my arms and they were like, "What on earth is that?" I would say, "Oh, it's nothing," or "I fell over," or the usual kind of stories. But then one day things got so bad, I ran away from our home. When I eventually did tell my dad what was happening, people in church were really surprised. We had done a really good job of not displaying what was going on at home in public. People in church were disappointed in him, but he didn't get into trouble over it. The response was more like, "Take some time to find yourself again." As far as I know, he never got reprimanded at all over it. And I think that in Black Pentecostal church, it's like adultery. These things happen and that's it. The church's response to me was, "You should stay with him," or "Men do hit sometimes." It was frustrating. And it led me just to believe that this happens a lot more and women just live in that situation, just praying and hoping that one day the abuse will stop. My ex-husband even got some famous bishops within our church fellowship to talk to me on his behalf and basically tried to bully me into going back to him. It was all about what I must do to make him look good. Having the support of my family really helped me to be able to let go. The process of letting go was hard. It was only when he was out of the country that I found the strength to seek some counseling and to tell my pastor what was happening. I can talk to him when I see him now because I'm really good at letting go of people that I let go of. I'm really good at letting go of people and I let go of him a long time ago. But it still makes me feel weird to think that such a thing could have happened to me. When I look back now, I can see where I could have seen certain signs in his behavior that would potentially lead to being abusive. I think that churches have improved since the time I went through what I went through, because a lot more people talk about it today. It's much more socially acceptable for women to explain or for men to come forward. Even my ex-husband now admits publicly that he did something wrong. Whereas before, he wouldn't admit it. Before, he would blame me for everything. But now he admits that he did hit me and that he shouldn't have done that. Generally, I believe that things are improving in the way that Black churches deal with domestic abuse, but there's still much work to be done. There is a way to go, but we have come a long way. Now people talk about it openly. They share their testimony. They give advice. More marriage workshops are held, and much more people are more open on a whole about marriage. This really helps. Now, that could be Angel, because a lot of what I heard there, I heard in Angel's lived experience. It could be, it could be any one of us that go through that, and that is a human response, a normal response. I'm gonna take what you've said. Is that Shirley? Bear with me. He says you don't want to spiritualize everything, but the devil is disguised as an angel of light. So discernment, if possible, of what demonic spirit is operating through the individual to destroy. Sorry, let me just get that. Have I missed it?
Oh, so what I was trying to say, it's like a setup. Sorry. I can't type, one of my hands is not working properly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but what it is sometimes, like you said, there's a knowing something's just quite not right here. And it's to be able to pause and find somebody you can speak to, pray about it, and run to the hills. You see, sometimes we go into things and then we're having to battle our way back out of it. You know, so it's about, we are spiritual in the sense that as Christians, we have that, hopefully, that knowing that God, the Holy Spirit, is telling us something, and it's to try and go with that discernment of spirit. Because there are demons out there that operate through individuals to kill, steal, and destroy. And I just think we need to be aware of that, because God's given us that gift, spiritual gift, to be aware. Yeah.
I do agree with you.
We have an enemy out there. I'm learning through all of this, so it's amazing what I'm hearing. I'm really chuffed and grateful that you're doing this, and I hope that there'll be many more.
No, thank you. Thanks so much for that. And you're right. The enemy has his job to do, and what he does is he comes in many guises. So sometimes it's not until you actually, as I said, not until you're actually in the situation. When I talked about how I was, when I was courting, I was on cloud nine. I felt everything was so great. But as I said, 6 weeks into the marriage, 6 weeks was my first experience of domestic violence. So what do you do then? Because it wasn't revealed to me before. There were some things, but nothing around violence, nothing around domestic abuse. Yeah, he was a bit tight financially, but it wasn't that was not, I would never have believed that he would have put his hand on me. So, you're right. It's the devil operates in, and remember, you also have to remember that he has got his job to do, and his job is to dismantle. And that's what he does. He tries to dismantle, and he will come at our relationships, he will come at our family, and he will come at our churches. So he will use the leaders, he will use the people, he will use whoever he needs to use to cause shame and embarrassment. And you're right, we do, we have to navigate our way through, and it isn't easy. Pastor Paulina, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just said, could you just thank God we are going forward. It's all wonderful, I'm glad we have interaction, from the floor. I need to give time for Pastor Errol and Sister Fran. So if you could just wind up in 5 minutes and then hand back to me, and we go on.
Thank you. No
it's
problem.
So wonderful. Thank you very much.
No problem. Okay, so Maxine, I'm going to just answer your question. How did you find strength to forgive the perpetrator? Because children of God, we have to. God requires this. Forgiveness is really, really hard. It is very, very hard, but it is necessary. It's necessary for your spiritual well-being. You hold on to that. If you hold on to that negativity, it ebbs at you. And it isn't easy. It's not easy. But until you let go, And you know, and you have to follow. The Bible tells us that we have to forgive, and you know, and yes, even when I was going through my situation, it was we have. Well, I was reminded about the fact you have to forgive 70 times 7, and it's hard, but it's necessary. It's necessary for your spiritual edification. Angel, I've got not even 5 minutes, so come on, and then I'll wrap up.
Just on the forgiveness aspect, what I found was that I wasn't forgiven necessarily because what they'd done to me, they deserved my forgiveness. It was more about I deserve peace. And the longer I held on to whatever it was that they had done to me, the longer it was going to take for my healing process. So I think it's very much about yourself. It's a bit like drinking the poison, expecting somebody else to die. So if we can find it in our hearts to basically look at ourselves and say, well, look, I really need sleep and I really need peace, then over time, God will help us to forgive those people who have treated us quite poorly. And I've forgiven. I've moved on, and I'm happy. God has transported me back to a place like when I was at home with my mum and dad. As I said, I count my blessings every night. I live in a lovely home. I want for nothing. So, what they've done, it's like driving in a car. You never drive and look backwards. You look in the big windscreen, and what's happened to you is in the rear view mirror, and it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's what you do. But just be kind and gentle with yourself.
Thanks so much. Right, so just to sum up, as we've talked about, abuse happens in many guises to different people, not just in marital relationships, but to the young, to the elderly, anybody, male and female. So it cannot be, just one person type. It can happen to anyone. There is so much support available out there. You may not know it, but there is. The church itself, let me say the Church of God, also have, there are a number of helplines, but the Church of God of Prophecy also has Sentient as a helpline that is there to support and help people going through difficulties. I'm just going to show my screen. Can you see that? Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. Thank you. So, Sentient Counseling Service, it's there to support individuals. So you can just ring up and book. I say not book, but ring up and get to speak to someone who will be able to actually arrange counseling sessions for you. And it's good because you will be talking to someone who doesn't know you. You don't even necessarily have to give your name if you don't want to, but you will be provided with information and support. The telephone number is there, and there is also an email address. And I'll try and put the link in the chat if I can when I'm finished, if anybody wants to, or I'll definitely put the number in the chat so you can, because it may not be you that's going through a difficult situation, but it's good to keep it handy just in case you need to pass it on to someone else. And as it says, we are here to help you begin your journey towards healing and restoration in every area of your life. So please don't feel that it's just around domestic abuse or violence. It isn't. It's about any issue, that you want to talk about. And there are a number of helplines. And I've talked about the Black churches that have come together to not only put on, as Marcia said, it's not just about putting on, having a booklet that you can look at, but they put on training for churches. They have a helpline that you can access. There are all sorts of support available. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the link to that. But what I probably will do is just put my details. So if you want that information, because I am the regional safeguarding lead, if you want the information, contact me directly. Safeguarding is everybody's responsibility, and ignoring it is definitely not an option. If there are any questions, I would say put them in the chat. And if we've got any time, then we will cover them. And if not, we will pick them up directly with you if you leave your details. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for listening to me and to Angel. And I'll hand back to Pastor Paulina. So thank you very much.
Amen. Thank you so much, Minister Angela, and our lovely Angel.
Thank you.
Angela and Angel. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Ascent.
The two A's.
Both of you are sent, to help people, help the church, help those who are not Christians. And abuse is no respecter of persons. It doesn't matter how high you are in society. These things happen. And I'm very pleased that, the Lord has allowed you to accept this invitation to come today. I would like Pastor Errol in a few minutes to say something. I noticed there's some dignitaries online. Sister Rowe, are you there? Rowe? I think I saw you.
Yes, I am indeed, Pastor Paulina. Good afternoon to you.
Well, I'd like to say welcome. Although we'll be finishing soon, I'm sure you've been online. Thank you for.
Yeah, sorry, I'm so late because it's a busy time for us at the moment. As you probably heard that my mother-in-law passed away.
Yes.
So it's a bit difficult, but I thought I had to come and just to support you for the last hour. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Sister Dawn, I can see your face somewhere. Dawn Martin, wonderful to see you. That you stopped by. You're so an intelligent person. We're so frightened of your intelligence, really. What is it you do? Is it law or something? Well, you seem to know a lot. So thank you, Sister Dawn. I think you were in my counseling group at camp. I'll never forget you. Yeah, wonderful. So I really and truly, Sister Polly, accept our sympathy. And I want Pastor Errol in a few minutes to say something, but this Sister Fran Seeley on. Sister Fran Seeley.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we would like you to read those scriptures that I asked you to do, and then I'm going to hand over to Pastor Errol.
First, I want to say today was just great and wonderful. I'm glad that we had opportunity like this to share and talk. I mean, from my own experience, I witnessed domestic violence, my mother, and for a long time I was angry with mum because I couldn't understand why she stayed in a situation, why she didn't do the right thing. But only as you get older, you understand, especially early 60s, that support, that help wasn't there. So I'm so glad for a time as we're getting better like this. So as Sister Angel said, forgiveness is a powerful thing, and you forgive, we have to. Okay, I'm going to read from Psalms 42. I'm reading from the NIV version. Why are you downcast, O my soul? Why are you so disturbed within me? Put your hope in God, for I will yet praise him, my Saviour and my God. My soul is downcast within me, therefore I will remember you from the land of the Jordan, from the heights of the Hermon, from Mount Mizar. I say to God, my rock, why have you forgotten me? Why must I go about mourning, oppressed by the enemy? Why are you downcast, O my soul? Why so disturbed within me? Put your hope in God, for I will yet praise him, my Saviour and my God.
Amen. We will still praise him after all abuse. We can still praise him. Sister Angela, I'm touched by your testimony, sharing of yourself, and Sister Angel, sharing of yourself. You're very brave. And as Sister Lenore said in her poem, she said, stand up, speak out, and live in liberty. Your life depends on it. Our life depends on it. Thank you so much. Now I'm handing over to our regional overseer, Pastor Errol Williams. Pastor Errol Williams.
Thank you, Pastor Paulina. First of all, I want to commend you for your vision in this area. Really do appreciate it. And want to say, Angel, love you lots. Actually, I've you've opened my eyes, you and Sister Angela. I'm so glad I came actually, because it's opened my eyes really wide. I think when you're not accustomed to something, you don't see the great need for it. But there are some points which you've made which I thought was so powerful, systematic. I think the word you used was systematic breakdown. Someone break you down systematically, which is really a devastating thing. And something that you said that really, I think, changed something inside of me when you said it's a miracle that you came out alive. And I think that's really powerful. I wanted to ask you a question, actually, just a particular point you made. Just wanted to check. I didn't hear it properly. You said statistically there are 3 women that die. Is that every week or month, or is that in the UK? Just clarify that for me. Can you hear me, Angel?
No, what did you say, sorry?
Yeah, I just wanted you to clarify statistics that I think it was you that made. I think you said that 3 women die every so often. How often was that? And
Yeah,
where?
I think the last time I heard it was like, well, in this country, it's between 2 to 3 women that die a week, but around the world, it would be about equivalent every 2 or 3 minutes. If you look at it holistically around the world, where women are dying.
I just wanted the UK figure.
Yeah,
so that was just
women
the UK.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem at all. Thanks for that.
Sorry, if I could say, Pastor Errol, in the UK, it's almost a fifth of the UK church community. It's saying 19% of adults have experienced violence.
But 3 women die per week.
Yeah.
Per week. Okay, thanks for that. I think one of the things I would say, Pastor Paulina, and what I'm committed to doing is to look at. I didn't even know that the Black Church's Domestic Abuse Forum existed, so it's good that I heard that. But what would be useful, Sister Angela and Pastor Paulina, is how do we go forward from here? What do we do? How do we educate the pastors? I noticed you mentioned that the amount of us that's here and so on, and I heard that loud and clear. And someone made a point which I thought was quite powerful for me. It takes 32 hits before someone take action. Would that be, Angela, would that be about right? Yourself and Angel, 32 hits before someone who's been abused take action. Is that about right?
I would say so. I didn't actually say it, but I would say so. And it's only when they're literally on their knees, whereby they've had to go to casualty, is where because what used to happen when when somebody's been beaten or ill-treated, the perpetrator would kind of cajole and bully the victim not to press charges. But now the CPS will go on ahead anyway with active bodily harm or grievous bodily harm, and they'll just go on ahead. But unfortunately, that's correct.
And we also have to remember, Pastor Errol, that these are only reported incidents.
Yes.
There are so many more incidents.
There's so many more.
Yeah, I think, this is really, I am so glad I came and so glad I listened as well, because, and sorry to hear of your situation as well, Sister Angela. I didn't know all of that. I didn't know any of it, actually, until today. So I'm learning. But I think what would be useful, Sister Angela, as a safeguarding officer, working with Sister Pauline, is what do we do going forward? What are the actions we can take?
I think we can take advantage of the support that's available from these organizations that are out there giving it, because the churches have recognized that they have a problem, and we are being criticized for not actually taking action, for not addressing.
So can you send me an email in that light? Is that possible? No. What I'm trying to say is in terms of what can we do? Does that make sense? It'd be good to. What I'm trying to say is, what are the 5 things we can do? Type of thing.
No problem.
So if I am to speak to the pastors, what would I be saying to them? what can we do in the light of what I'm hearing today? Because what I'm hearing today, I want to take to another level. It's very, very serious. You see, when you're not experiencing something, you don't. Okay, let me put it this way. When I'm not experiencing something personally, I don't see the seriousness of it as much as somebody else who's going through it. So when I heard Angel when I heard Angel make the comment, and I wrote it down here in my iPad, it's a miracle that I came out alive. You know, when I hear a statement like that, that says something deep to me. Now, one of the things I've said to myself, I have 5 daughters, Angel.
Wow.
And if one of them come to me tonight and say to me, my boyfriend, my husband hit me, they're not going back home.
Straight.
You see what I'm saying? And I would say to my daughter, and even though my oldest daughter is 42, I would say to her, unless you call the police, I'm calling the police. I'm just trying to, you see, because I'm still a father and I'm not burying her. But I don't want to bury her. So what I'm saying
it's
is,
very serious. It's very, very.
It's very serious.
For me to be here is by God's wonderful grace. This is not it's at any point when you're being strangled or you're being thrown into a mirror. At any point of any of those incidences, I could be dead, not raised, not being seeing my young boy finish his A levels and all the rest of it. So coming out of it now, it's like, I really take my life seriously. I could not, it's by God's grace. That's all I can say, God's grace.
Yeah. So if you could do that for me, Sister Angela, that would be, and I would like to raise this as well with Bishop Ted Roy.
I think you'll find that the people on the platform are already putting in the suggestions, which are really excellent.
Excellent,
So
if you could help me with that, that would be great. I really do appreciate this. Pastor Paulina, thank you so much. The chances are, if I was not using my Zoom account, I probably wouldn't have been here. That's the chances. And I'm so glad that I'm here. Angel, thank you very much. And Sister Angela,
you're welcome.
You've certainly opened my eyes with some of those comments that was made to motivate me. Because as I said, I have 5 daughters and a few grandchildren that are girls. And I do not wish to bury any of them through this.
No.
So if you could help me, and maybe as well, Sister Angela and Sister Pastor Paulina, maybe ask Angel to help to make some of the suggestions that I could use.
Yes.
Yeah, so that would be really helpful. And I will raise this with Bishop Ted Roy at the exec level.
You want me back?
From there.
Wow. Privilege.
I think that's it. My 5 minutes is up, Pastor Paulina. Thank you very much, Angel, and the 2 AAs. Thank you very much. You have opened my eyes a great deal today. But I think the statement I'll take away, it's a miracle you made it out alive, and I think that is serious.
That's right.
That is very serious. Thank you very much. Back to you, Pastor Paulina.
Thank you. The AA batteries, thank you very much for your contribution. We call you AA batteries, yeah? Thank you so much. And thank you, Pastor Errol, Senior Pastor. I really appreciate you, admire you, you know that. And, you're so approachable, sir. You're firm, you're approachable. And we could make these suggestions because I couldn't do it unless you said it's okay. So thank you very much for accepting my thoughts. And thank you, team. Thank you, those who have contributed. Pastor Lupita, Sister Fran is my secretary. And she's doing a good job, contacting. I brought her out of my phone. Sister Fran, you still there?
I'm still here.
That's right. So, just being the admin is brought her out of herself. And
thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Clive Williams, all those online. I cannot see all the names. Everybody, thank you so much. And remember to pray for me. And we're going to pray for each other. That maybe we're all right now, but we don't know what will happen in the future. But I think we've been empowered
Thank you, Sister Paulina, for calling out my name.
We have been empowered, and our eyes are being opened, and we thank Pastor Errol that he's going to take this forward, and as his leader of the men's ministry, he can take it forward there as well. And may the Lord bless you. Miss Angela, give me a wave. Take something and wave. Woo!
God bless everyone.
Everybody know I'm mad. Anyway, God bless you and thank you. We're going to go now. God bless you.
Okay.